No matter who you are, we are all a part of a culture. Each person's culture is important. It is part of what makes us who we are. It holds the stories from the past and the messages we want to carry forward. It is a tie to place and to people. In Australia, there is a distinct culture present. It is the culture of those who lived on the land first, before the ships and planes arrived. It is based on a reverence for land and in the belief of the Dreamtime. Family, law, ceremony and language are all interconnected in a way that is uniquely Indigenous. While Western cultures find significance in the material artifact, many Indigenous cultures contrastly manifest themselves in process, performance and rituals. It therefore makes sense that the translation of this culture into architecture has proven to be challenging and oftentimes problematic due to this disparity. In Australia, examples of Aboriginal cultural centres range from the pragmatic response of providing functional spaces within communities to purpose-designed facilities that aim to represent identities. The outcomes of these places oftentimes battle between excluding those outside of the culture or becoming a pastiche space filled with stereotypes. They are difficult spaces to create, and it is this understanding that must be kept at the forefront of our minds when exploring this topic and the examples that will be discussed moving forward.
There are currently only 8 Indigenous architects residing in Australia. Thus, the design of Indigenous cultural buildings is mostly left up to non-Indigenous designers. Given these circumstances, it is vital that outside architects give the Indigenous community clients primary agency throughout the design, greatly improving the project's chances of success. A compelling example of such an approach is the Garma Cultural Knowledge Centre. Located in northeast Arnhem, the centre lies on the ground of the Gulkula, a meeting place for the Yolngu people. In this case, the Aboriginal community had unprecedented amount of control over the design. Knowing the cultural importance of the centre, the outside architects gave the Yolngu people free rein in how they wanted to employ deep-rooted cultural symbols and meanings within the design. The final outcome displays the ability of architecture as a medium of cultural storytelling.
We Yolngu have survived to this day because of our knowledge. That's what we want to share.
As a result of the near absolute control over the architectural direction, the clients were able to ensure the building abided by local kinship law. The layout accommodates traditional socio-spatial avoidance practices. This is seen through the use of well-placed entrances and exits, which allow various community groups to move freely within the centre. Outside architects frequently overlook these important issues, which significantly contribute whether or not the building gets ongoing use within the community. The Garma Cultural Knowledge Centre, like all community-oriented buildings, must be evaluated at the post-occupancy stage. The driving factor in their success was the broad community participation, which allowed them to shape a piece of architecture which shared their personal story, without the obstruction from outside forces. By not falling into a tokenistic approach, the project has surpassed expectations, proving it to be a powerful agent of both preserving and promoting thousands of years of cultural knowledge.
Very different dynamic at play in other cultural centres around Australia to that of the Garma example. In other instances, the involvement of government groups has led to the creation of cultural centres stuck in between contributing to the community and acting as a place of tourism, with only a few being able to find the balance. The Karajini Visitor Centre was born out of the desire to represent the Indigenous culture of the national park it sits in. The creation of the centre was undertaken with extensive consultation with the traditional owners, who chose a large goanna moving through country to be the base of the design. The award-winning architecture of the centre as such features large Corten steel walls curving to create the goanna's path. Although John Nichols, the project architect, went to great lengths to develop a mutual trust with the community and ensure they had a say in the design throughout the project, his client was ultimately the Western Australian government, who had selected the site and did not provide the Indigenous groups any formal authority throughout the project, minimising the impact of their voice. Furthermore, the remote location has meant the centre acts as a museum for displays created by the community, rather than an enriching hub of exchange for the 3 Aboriginal groups so strongly tied to the design of it. It is now only really inhabited by tourists who enter the park to gain phone reception that is otherwise spotty, and the only Indigenous engagement is from those who, encouraged by the government, offer tours of the country, and not really as a place for gathering and sharing on a greater scale. In contrast, the government funding that supported the Matton-Johnson community and the development of its cultural centre has created an incredibly different experience. The consultation for the project lasted for 5 years to develop a space to be utilised fully by the community and those who visit. The centre has become a vibrant space for Indigenous artists and cultural festivals throughout the year, with a focus on carrying the uniting Dreamtime story of the Wandjina spirit and passing it on to the next generation from all races.
It's a spirit that was given to our people long time ago. He's like a human being, but this here is his power, showing people the right way to live. He speaks through rain. This is what we have to teach our kids the right way of life.
The centre, although a little tokenistic in its design, literally being the Dreamtime figure's head and plan, has really become adopted as an important place for the community, whilst also being an engaging place for visitors to come and learn the story from a staff entirely consisting of the Indigenous community. It is a successful combination of the professional establishment of a centre and the personal relationships the community hold, demonstrating that in this instance both can be married together in a project.
Similar issues appear to develop further for larger projects and are based on the following points. Architecture cannot always amend the ongoing social, cultural and historical issues of white Australian engagement with Indigenous people. Cultural centres that are aimed at a tourist market often fail to create genuine cultural exchange. Thus, feedback from the Indigenous community members involved is essential regarding the success of the centre on their terms. The Uluru Katachuta Cultural Centre engaged the Anangu people in the design process such that the building reflects their traditional Chukupa tale in a metaphoric sense. This tale is part of Anangu law and is critical to the Anangu people's connection with the landscape encompassing Uluru. However, many tourists misinterpret this and read the physical outcome as unsophisticated without truly attempting to engage with its metaphoric intentions. This misunderstanding between cultures means that the Anangu people have had to create and sell artefacts that are a form of non-Indigenous cultural production. These artefacts and performances communicate what is vital for the Anangu people in a way that Western cultures understand. Furthermore, the original vision of the centre as a place for ceremonial and craft activity for the Mutijulu community has failed. This is due to its inaccessible location from the community, as well as the cultural chasm previously mentioned. Despite this, the Anangu people have asserted that tourists often reframe how they engage with the landscape after visiting the centre. Many now understand why the Uluru climb was closed from October 2019 out of respect for Chukupa custom. This displays how cultural centres can help tourists in understanding Indigenous culture as distinct from white Australian culture and significant in its own right.
I've always wanted to do it and I'm just so excited I did it. I'm Australian and I just think it's part of being Australian.
So you think people should become educated about the rock?
Yeah, educated.
Not just climb it, get down, go home?
Yeah, not to climb up, to have fun, get down and go back up.
These issues of genuine cultural exchange are further explored in the Brambook Cultural Centre, which depends on collaboration with the Grampians District Tourist Association. Thus, its promotion of the area as Aboriginal is again tainted by the tourist domain. Its marketing of exotic otherness through artefacts occurs within an environment that feels predictable for the uninformed tourists. This minimalises the critical thought provoked by confrontation with difference. The project does, however, reassert the presence of Koori culture and seeks to maintain its dignity and legitimacy amongst Kooris by making it a place for gathering. Each of these places hold their own problems and successes. They demonstrate the complexity in attempting to reconcile the cultural practices of Indigenous Australians within architecture that incorporates Western ideals. These case studies beg the question, how can architecture move beyond the stereotype, capture meaning, and create an environment that is beneficial for all?